Hi everyone, welcome to the Wheel of Well-Being. This is kind of a bridge between talking about the dimensions of wellness and how we really be intentional about creating wellness or well-being in our lives, and actually then how to begin to really systematically implement a behavior enhancement program. And I'm going to call it a behavior enhancement program because it's usually called behavior change, and I don't like that because it feels judgmental just from the beginning. And so, and then it also gives you the idea that somebody else is going to tell you what you need to be doing and not need to be doing as far as your behavior goes. And what I'm really encouraging you to do is find out what you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with, and the things that you want to enhance and the things that you want to improve. And so this is all about you, and it's all about your own comfort level, but it's also inviting you into really looking at what's working for you, what's not working for you, and the things that you can do that are going to lead you into a higher sense of well-being. So right now, before we start, I even want to just kind of just ground us in where we've been and just recap a little bit. So we've been talking a lot about the dimensions of wellness. What are the dimensions of wellness? And the idea is that we have many different areas of wellness. Wellness isn't just about being physically healthy, because you can be physically healthy and falling apart from emotional health or stress or anxiety. I know that from firsthand. Or not doing well in your social wellness, or not doing well in your environmental wellness, or whatever it is. And that can really drag down your sense of well-being. So again, we talk about all the different areas of dimensions of wellness. We've been talking a lot about that. You've been reflecting on what they look like for you in your life, and you've been picking certain things to work on through the week. So we're kind of good there. And again, so what's going on for you right now? You may be feeling balanced and uncertain and crazy. There's so much predictability going on in your life right now. So how do you get grounded? How do you do your best? How do you be your best self? I talked about my friend Habib's story about the big ocean liner going down the ocean, and that the captain really turns the little rudder, that turns the big rudder, that turns the whole big ship. And so the idea there is we just need to make little changes over and over and over, and pretty soon the steamer going down the ocean has completely changed directions. And so it really is paying attention, but it is paying attention. It is doing something about it, because a lot of times we know it, but we don't do it because it seems so simple, and then nothing ever gets done. And if nothing changes, nothing changes. The idea that we are systems of adaptation, whatever we give ourselves in the term of a level of well-being, whether it's a low level of well-being or whether it's a high level of well-being, we're going to get more of. So if we're just sitting around being stressed out all day long, or sitting around being upset because this whole COVID thing is so crazy, but not getting out and moving and not eating well, that we're just going to get more of that. So we are systems of adaptation. We're going to adapt to whatever kind of circumstance or whatever kind of experience we are living under every single day. And so the idea is, right now we're given what we're given. So how do we take what we're given and really try to make the most of it by looking at really specifically at all these different dimensions of our wellness? And the idea that you have two systems. You have what's called the common connection system, and you have your fear response system. And we're going to talk a lot more when we get to the stress management about this. But your common connection system, it takes cultivating. You have to work on being well to be well. It doesn't just happen. And not being sick doesn't necessarily mean being well. So we really broke this down into all the different dimensions. The idea that if nothing changes, nothing changes. We have to be proactive about everyday changes, and we really need to do them in our everyday life to really begin to make a change. So that's kind of the foundation of where we've been so far with this course. And what is well-being? A well-being is this whole integrated approach of all of these things in our life. Okay, and the wellness continuum, again, is that not being sick doesn't necessarily mean being well. And to be well, we need to put effort. We need to be proactive about being well in all of the areas of our life. So then we got a little bit more deep into the dimensions of wellness and how they all interact, and that they're kind of like a tapestry. They're all woven together. They all kind of combine together. And so when we look at the wellness continuum, it's not just one wellness continuum. It's about all these different aspects of our life weaving together, and that we work on all of these for a whole continuum of getting to that higher sense of well-being, or a wellness lifestyle approach. And so we talked about physical wellness, and I want you, when I go over this, I want you to think about what that means for you, because I've been encouraging you to look at what these things for you are in your own life, not what I'm going to tell you, not what somebody else is going to tell you, because ultimately your well-being is really determined by how you feel about these specific things in your own life. So we talked about physical wellness, we talked about intellectual wellness, we talked about social wellness. Now, again, I want you to think about how these are playing out in your own life. Emotional wellness, how does emotional wellness play out in your own life? Environmental wellness, and again, you should have been reflecting on these enough that you should have some kind of idea about what these mean for you. What does spiritual wellness mean for you? Is it a religious thing, or is it not a religious thing? It doesn't have to be a religious thing, and it can be for some people. What does financial wellness look like for you? Does it mean that you're really thriving, or does it mean that it's not really all that important to you, but you want to make sure that you're not thinking about it all the time because you don't want to be stressed out about it? What is occupation? And again, I use the word occupational or vocational wellness interchangeably. I personally like the term vocational better, because it kind of gives you the idea that if you're just working for a passion or a purpose, it doesn't necessarily have to be a job, but you have some passion and purpose in your life for doing something outside of yourself, that is a form of wellness. And then what I asked you to do is I asked you to figure out, on all these different categories, what are some of the subcategories? And what I asked you to do with the subcategories is begin to identify behaviors, right? Begin to identify behaviors that you're already strong in, and behaviors that you'd like to improve in. And again, nobody's going to tell you this for you. You need to figure it out for yourself. You need to figure out what you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with, the area, and really honestly, in the areas that you'd like to work on, and the areas that aren't so important for you to work on. So again, the subcategories, I don't want you to confuse you with that wording, but the subcategories I was talking about more the behaviors that make up, because we may, rather than just kind of judge, okay, my physical health is really good, that's not really going to be helpful, right? If it's good or bad, it's not going to really be helpful, except kind of looking at what that means for you. So I gave an example of, for my subcategories in physical, I might want to think about, my exercise. I'm pretty high in my exercise. My nutrition, I'm pretty good in my nutrition. My sleep, not so good all the time. So, so when we start to identify subcategories, we kind of identify areas that we might want to work on, that might enhance our well-being. And again, this isn't about being judgmental for you. It's about really kind of enhancing areas that you would want to work on. Some people don't need to work on their sleep, or they're not interested in working on their sleep. They would be more interested in working on their exercise or nutrition. Or they might be more interested, they wouldn't even pick those three categories. They might be more interested in going to the doctor, or something else about their physical health, subcategories of your intellectual health, subcategories of your social health. One of the areas that I said that for me that I would want to work on is being the initiator more often. I tend to get so busy that I'm totally open and I'm very close to my social contacts, but I'm not always the initiator, and I would like to be better in that. So that would be a subcategory that, again, in overall social wellness, I think I'm pretty good, but that would be a subcategory that I would rate myself a lot lower on, because it's something that's important to me. It's something that I want to work on. Okay, same thing for emotional health. What do you do for your emotional health? What are the subcategories that you are strong in? What are the subcategories that you would like to work on? And so I asked you to kind of identify all those different subcategories for yourself. Then we got to the page, and this is kind of where we ended last time. We got to the page that what I wanted you to do was rate your level of wellness, right? So on the dimensions of relative degrees of health, I had a number line with 0 for low level of wellness, and 100% for high level of wellness, 50% in the middle. And then I gave you all the different dimensions of wellness. And what I wanted you to do is I wanted you to write down the subcategories, whatever they are for you. So for like on physical wellness, I might write down exercise, and I might write down nutrition, and I might write down sleep. And then what I wanted you to do, and again, this is where we ended, but this is where we're going to pick up. So it's really important to kind of clarify where we were. If you weren't there, get yourself there, because we're going to pick up from here. And so what I wanted you to do is I wanted you to clarify the subcategories that are important to you, both the ones that are important to you because you're good at, but also the ones that are important to you because you want to work on them. And what I asked you to do was just put an X on the number line of how high it would go. And so this is kind of an example of what mine might look like. You know, my physical wellness, my exercise is pretty high, my nutrition is pretty high, my sleep not so good. You know, my intellectual wellness, what does that look like? Well, you know, I've gone to school for a really long time, and so I'm not always good at this point of really kind of challenging myself intellectually, you know, finding new knowledge, because I've just kind of, that's something that I think I would like to work on a little bit more right now. Social wellness, you know, as I said, I'm not always very good at initiating contact, but yet when I'm in the presence of somebody, I'm really strong at that. And that's really important to me too. Both are important. Working on initiating contact is really important, but also it is important to me that I can carry kind of a certain type of presence of being with somebody. Emotional wellness is pretty high for me because I work really, really hard on it, because I have not been very good in that area in the past. So I meditate, I put exercise. Again, some of these things, some of these behaviors are going to cross dimensions. For me, exercise is about my emotional health just as much as it is my physical health. So I put that down there, you know. Grounding, I'm pretty good at grounding myself. Environmental, with this whole switch to online, I'm kind of a relational person, and that's always been a really easy dimension for me to be in. And although I'm talking about this environmentally with the switch to now we're going to do this all online, now this looks totally different, now my work looks totally different, I have to formulate this totally different way of being organized. I didn't used to sit very much pre-COVID times because I was always standing and walking across campus and standing when I was teaching. And so just being able to sit and have a space that's organized and the computer that's organized and is a whole new challenge for me. I'm not horrible at it, but it's a whole new challenge. So I would rate myself lower because that is something that I would like to work on. Getting out in nature, I do that a lot. And it's super important to me. So I don't think I do it as much as would benefit my wellness. I think if I did it more, it would benefit my wellness. Even though I do it a lot, that's something I would like to put more emphasis in because it feeds me so much. So I might kind of rate that lower. So anyway, what I wanted you to do and where I wanted you to finish was at this place with the X's all over the number line. Okay, so now what we're going to do, if you haven't done that yet, you need to pause and you need to get to that space where you have done all of that. So then the very next thing that we're going to do and that I'd like you to do is I want you to, so now you have a wheel. And the idea of this is just to find a visual. It's not anything you haven't done yet, but the visual can be pretty impactful. And so where all the lines, first of all, each kind of piece of the pie is one of the dimensions. So I want you to look at this, how I filled it out. What I want you to do is I want you to label on the outside of each of the pieces of the pie, each of the dimensions, however you want to organize them is fine. But you might put, environmental wellness and one of the pieces, and then social wellness and one of the pieces, intellectual. So go around and label all of those pieces for the wheel and pause the recording until you have them labeled. So now what I want you to do, and this is going to take some time, and it's going to take some thought, and it's going to take some creativity, is I want you to break each of the pieces of the pie for each dimension down into the behaviors or the subcategories that you talked about. So most will have 3, but they won't all have 3. Some of them might only have 2, or you may even have more than 3. I don't know. But I want you to break down each of the pieces of the pie, right? Not going out, but like the fraction of the pie. Kind of. So look at the example I have here. Okay, and then I want you to fill in. So each of those areas, whether it's 2 or 3 or whatever subcategories you have, the slivers, they're smaller slivers of the piece of pie, is I want you to label those for the subcategories. And then I want you to imagine that the middle of the wheel is 0, where you had 0 on the number line, and the outside is 100% on the number line. And then I want you to just kind of bring that sliver of that behavior out to where you, again, just kind of where you intuitively think it goes for how you feel about that sub-behavior in that dimension in your wellness. So again, it may be something, if somebody else rated you, they'd say, no, you're really high in that. But you feel like, with my environmental wellness, I get out a lot, but I want to get out more in nature. So I might rate it a little lower because I know that my well-being would be a little bit higher, especially now if I got out in nature a little bit more. So what I want you to do is I want you to just draw that sliver out to kind of the area that you are estimating where it would be on the number line. Look at my example here and then color those in, and then you can color code them. You can match up the colors that you had on the other piece of paper, however you want to do it. But I want you to take some time and really kind of writing those subcategories out and then really filling that in. So I want you to pause the recording and give yourself plenty of time to be able to do this. So now the idea is, right, a wheel. So I want you to think about a wheel. So now everything, that whole wheel should be colored in. And what you're going to find is a lot of slivers of pie, not just the 8 big pieces, but a lot of little slivers of the pie that are all at different degrees of coming out to the full end of the wheel. So I want you to think of a wheel, right? A wheel functions best when it's equally inflated. Let me say that again. A wheel functions best when it's equally inflated. So I just want you to look at your examples. And again, this isn't about saying the things that you're already well in that you should reduce in any way. I'm not saying that at all. But this just gives you a good visual. And again, I'm not making anybody right or wrong or judgmental or anything like this, because it is what it is for you. But the reason why I like this idea of wellness, or the wheel of wellness, is because it gives you a really good visual of the things that you might want to work on in your life to balance it out so your wheel is a little bit more equally inflated. What are some of the things that you want to focus more on to just have more of a balanced wheel in your life? And again, this is only for you. It's only for you to decide. But from that wheel, what I'm going to ask you to do now, and again, the wheel doesn't have to determine the next part, but it is a really helpful visual to decide kind of how balanced you are. And again, this is totally your decision of what you want to work on, but I want you to kind of see how well you are balanced. And then what we're going to do, and after you kind of look at that and let that sink in a while, what I want you to do is on this last page, or the second to the last page of Dimensions of Wellness, what I want you to do is I want you to list what are your strengths, and be really honest. I know a lot of people, it's hard for them to write about their strengths, but I want you to really kind of focus in on what were the areas that really went pretty far out to that edge of the wheel. What are your strengths? And just kind of focus and write on those. So pause the recording and give yourself about 5 minutes to just kind of really reflect on your strengths and let them sink in. Okay, so now what I want you to do is I want you to look at the wheel again, and I want you to look on some of the things that aren't so far out and decide for yourself if those are areas of things that you really want to work on. Because again, this is all about how you feel about your own well-being. But look at that, look at the wheel, just kind of let it sink in for a little bit. And then I want you to decide for yourself, and again, the visual may help. You don't have to take what the visual is telling you. And I want you to just decide, out of all those dimensions of wellness and all the subcategories or behaviors that you defined, what are the things that are most important to you to really work on, that your level of wellness isn't as high as you would like it to be. So again, just pause the recording and brainstorm and write in on that page areas that you would like to work on. Okay, so the next thing I want you to do is down here at the bottom, it says brainstorm on specific practices. But that basically means, okay, so now let's look at your life and let's look at doable behaviors right now. And I want you to just brainstorm on some of the things that you want to work on, some of the things that you want to put effort into that you're already doing well, and some of the things that you want to put effort into that you feel like improving on would really enhance your well-being. And so I just kind of want you to brainstorm on really, really, really specific practices on that. And so this is where we're going to finish on this video, but we're going to start with the next video from this point. So it's really important that you've identified some strengths and also some things that you would really like to work on, and also be in very specific practices, not just general areas, not just general area, oh, I think I'd like to do some things that would help my emotional health. I want to know specifically some real specific behaviors of things that you would like to do to improve your emotional health, both in areas that you're already strong, but you either want to stay strong in, or you want to kick it up a notch, or you want to reinvigorate it, and areas that are you're feeling like you would really like to put some effort into right now because you know that it's just not enough for you in that area right now. So I just, again, want you to identify some pretty targeted, specific behaviors. And then we're going to start the next video in really kind of investigating what change looks like from there.